call the special Seward City Council meeting to order. It's March 14th at 6 o'clock, and the title is Jesse Lee Home Site. Let's just start the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is roll call. Madam Clerk?
Tonight's roll call: McClure.
Here.
Olsenga is excused. Calhoun.
Here.
Wells.
Here.
Casagranda.
Here.
DeMoss.
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items for public hearing, which we have no public hearing items. Those who have signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. Time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, 36 minutes total speaking time, and in our code it just says if you can say if you are an inside or outside city limits. And Madam Clerk, has anyone signed in to speak?
We do not have anyone signed in.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second. Any changes? Madam Clerk?
Voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda: McClure.
Yes.
Yes. Casagranda.
Yes.
DeMoss.
Yes.
Calhoun.
Yes.
Wells.
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved, and there are no items on consent.
Next on the agenda is other new business items, Committee of the Whole Jesse Lee Home Site. Since this is something new that we're doing, I'm just going to step out and make a motion that we move into the Committee of the Whole, and I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, and then we'll call for a vote on that.
Voting on moving into Committee of the Whole: Casagranda.
Yes.
Wells.
Yes.
McClure.
Yes.
Calhoun.
Yes.
DeMoss.
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That motion is approved, and you are now in committee.
So now we are more of a work session format. I'm just going to suggest this during our Committee of the Whole time. We'll go ahead and turn it over to administration to do the PowerPoint. And then I'll have it come to us for questions. We'll go to the public and have opportunity for the public to speak again. And then we'll come back to the dais and see where we're at for the wrap-up. Does that sound good to everyone? Okay, so I'll turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this evening, what we wanted to do is present the information that we know right now about the Jesse Lee Home Site. And Jason's going to go deeper in depth, but we will admittedly say we don't have all the answers, but this is what we know right now, and we wanted you to be in the loop of what we know right now.
Okay, so good evening. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to give you kind of a little bit of background and information of where we are timeline-wise for the site cleanup. And obviously kind of much of this happened before I came on, so it's been a little bit of investigation coming on and kind of figuring out where we're at, and then picking up and grabbing the baton and running with it. So KCI, who's the engineering firm that's working with Coldfoot, is the one who does all the work for as far as environmental work plans. And so they went ahead and they excavated the site, and then they look at all those materials, and then they have to come up with a work plan to see like what else is down there and how they need to dispose of those materials. And so from their investigations, they drafted their environmental work plan. That draft plan is then sent to Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, which happened in November. It took them about a month and some change to review it. And then what they do is they come back and they require more information with questions and possible adjustments, and so those get sent back to KCI. And then they made those adjustments in February, and then we just resubmitted that work plan to ADC for final review right now. And so once they make, once ADC approves that, then Coldfoot, who's the contractor, will provide kind of a cost estimate for the work plan for that final cleaning up of the site. So that's kind of where we're at as far as kind of the biggest piece that's enabling all the other things to move forward, so. Any questions in regards to that piece right there?
Just, do you have an estimate of time between the submitting this time to ADC and when they'll come back?
I'm hoping it should be within the month.
Okay.
Yeah, she said she's putting it in the queue, so a lot of times it depends on how much they have built up in the queue right then, but it's usually about a month turnaround.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just as a follow-up to that, and then you'll just provide the information to council.
Yes. Yep. Okay, next slide, please. So I did want to kind of back up a little bit, and it was a good reminder for me to kind of figure out all the things that took place in regards to the site. So a survey was done by Community Development in November of 2020, and over 300 respondents. There was about 309 actually respondents to the survey. So, and I'll get into it in a minute here, but the results do seem somewhat conflicting, only because I think some of the questions were, having built a lot of surveys before, some of the questions were kind of, and I don't think people aren't intentionally loading them, but you have to make sure you're being very clear and not leading one way or the other to really get what you're asking for. And if you don't, you'll kind of get some results that may appear to kind of work against each other. And so just the two things that came out of it, though, that we can say is a large majority wanted more than half of the space to be used as a park, because the questions were, do you want the whole space, part of the space, some of the space, none of the space? And then a large majority also wanted some kind of memorial on that same site, and then there was no specifics as to what that memorial would be of any kind. So, and the Planning and Zoning Commission did a presentation in December of 2020 on possible area concepts, and they put out, it started out with just all park, and then I think the last one was like all housing, like really high density housing, and kind of all these different concepts between, and talking about what the possibilities were. So if you do want to look back at that is available to look at. So if we do have that PowerPoint too, I was able to go find and go through that. So, but that's kind of as far as like the community survey discussion goes. That this predates any of us being here. So, but that's kind of where we're at on those pieces. And then I did want to, just so that you guys can understand a little bit, there was 4 main questions that we'll go through really quickly next. Next slide, please. So this one says, pick the statement that you agree with most. And so the entire 2.66 acres should be used, less than 50%, greater than 50%, and then the entire site should be sold, and any memorial built should be moved to another site. So that's kind of, so anyway, that's kind of the results of that first question. Next slide. The creation of memorials should be done on the original Jesse Lee home site. So you can see those results there. Next slide, please. The City of Seward has enough multifamily residential options to support the population. That's kind of the, I think that was kind of asking, like, what should we do with the site? Should we put housing, or should we put something else here? So, but as you can kind of read, some of those questions are somewhat leading. They're leading to a conclusion, so a little bit before. Next question. The City of Seward has enough park open space for public use by its citizens. And those were the 4 main questions to that survey, and then there was about 170 comments that also came out with that survey as well, that people were able to give input. And those are actually, I think, sometimes that's some of the best information you can get is just reading through those. So those are, if you guys want those, I do have those available if anyone does want those. Any questions just on those questions, the survey results? Okay. Next slide, please. So the Community Development Department did draft some plans, and looking at that kind of space that's colorized, just to give you guys an idea of that, the widest point at the top is 450 feet, and the dimension north-south is 260 feet, so that kind of gives you an idea. But there was kind of some ideas or concepts talked about being, you can see that community garden concept that was there. There's the playground, there's a parking lot. That other building, it looks like there's a structure with a roof there. I'm not really sure what that is. We think it's might be a bathroom. It was not labeled. And then, as we've been looking at these designs, one of the things that we thought would, as an administration right now, is that it might be nice just to have a larger grass area in general. That's one of the things that a lot of the parks don't have here. Our city parks don't have large green space. So, and then the way that concept was too is there would be some room for the greenhouse expansion if that were desired. The playground equipment was ordered in June of 2021, and it took a little while to track that down. When I first was able to track it down, it was sitting in a container ship off the coast of Los Angeles, where it had been sitting for a few months, and it is now strangely en route. It's in Indiana, and then it'll make its way back to Seattle, and then get shipped up here. So, and that playground equipment that was ordered, there's kind of like a main centerpiece. It's actually, if you look at it, it's somewhat close in concepts to what's at the elementary school right now, where they kind of the main centerpiece, and there's like a swing set, and there's some other side kind of complementary pieces around it. There's 5 pieces, and I've been told that it will likely arrive here in June. So that's kind of where we're at on some of those draft plans and pieces. Any questions? Yes.
What is number 2, 3, 4 on there?
I could not find the key, like to what that was referencing, and so I found the number of pictures, but I can only think that number 3 was probably referencing the dog park. 4, I don't know, maybe planting trees, I guess. 5 was playground, and then 1 was thing, but yeah, I was not able to find the key to go with that.
2 was the memorial.
Yeah, 2 is in the area of the current memorial.
Okay.
Right, I think that was where they were going to do something.
Okay.
I have a couple questions while folks are formulating there. So the community garden was in those initial concepts even before they came and made a presentation, or is that a new addition?
No, that's been there since those draft plans were made.
And then I've had some people within regards for the rec center feasibility study that we're currently doing. If the team is looking at this location at all, like nothing we're talking about or doing, if something comes out of that feasibility study, this property isn't off the table potentially. Like, we're not making any final decisions tonight on what's going to happen.
No. We're just presenting to you kind of where the discussion was left at, and giving you guys all the information, and just what was the last known things that were presented to people, so that we can be aware as a community, and you guys can, everyone can just be on the same page, and we can move forward as you best see fit.
And some of any structures that could be on there will really be dependent on what comes out of ADC and the mitigation. So, at this time, there's no structures, and we don't know if there will be allowed to have structures there.
Because I would like to see this property, like with the South Harbor Uplands, like it came to council for kind of final adoption about what that might look like. So, I mean, it would be good, and then everyone that, has a stake in this. Eventually, I know we're still waiting for all those pieces. Are there any other questions for administration? Well, did I hear someone talking? Go ahead.
Just to clarify, this piece that we see is the entire land of the Jesse Lee.
Yes.
And so I know somebody already asked what the roofs are to the east, but there's actually nothing there, right?
No, I think what they were thinking of maybe to put a public restroom there at some point in time, but that's the only thing I can,
You mean on the other side of the property line?
Yeah.
oh,
Oh, that,
Aren't those the apartments?
yeah.
those are.
Those are
the
those
apartments.
apartments on the street up to the high school.
Yeah.
Kimberly
Yeah.
Court, yeah.
That's probably the one above that.
Yeah.
Above Kimberly Court.
Thank you.
Well,
And I do have one more slide here.
oh yeah, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Next slide, please. So kind of going forward, really the timeline is ultimately dependent on the ADC mitigation plan requirements and then contractor availability. So Coldfoot said that they'll give us that information after we get everything back from ADC and they approve that. And so I know that we already have made a payment to Metco for like filling and grading of the area at some point in time. And then, so I guess tentatively, like I'd say maybe a likely scenario would be, you know, kind of a cleanup of the site of summer 2022 of grading the site and getting it all kind of set, and then whatever plans, you know, whether it's a park or whatever, would kind of come through in 2023, depending on what decisions are made. But those are just kind of I don't think anything, all that to say is I don't think anything could really be done on that site. The earliest would be summer of 2023. And then too, the other piece that kind of came up as we were discussing kind of the plans that were on there is, you know, funding, like when I look at that, like I don't know what the discussion was around funding needs for the memorial, depending on the size of it. The parking lot, like paving it, we know that that's like doing curb work and all that kind of thing. And then obviously if there's plans for a future restrooms we know are not cheap, but the earliest thing that I mean, if you're going to do it eventually, it's better to get stuff possibly in the ground before you do that, or to kind of prep for that so you know that it's coming, so it saves you money down the road when you have the ground opened up. And so anyway, those are just some thoughts going forward.
What's your question?
You may not know, but I guess I thought there was still some money left for the memorial out of the original money we had. What happened to that? And maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me there was.
I have no...
All grant funds were spent, and we do know that there are some memorials, so to speak, and signage being made out of the wood that was there.
Yeah, that was my
on the
question.
property.
I know some of the materials are salvaged.
And that work is going on, to our knowledge, and we're still working on confirming all of that, so we know that, but all grant funds were spent.
Well, I jumped in on my questions, anyone here?
I think I have two questions. The first question is, do we know where the city main for water and sewer are? Closest?
Yeah,
Where are they?
it pretty much surrounds it. I mean, there's like multiple access points. I had a slide earlier, but I can give that to you guys. But really, like sewer and water pretty much goes right around it, so that's all very close access depending on what angle, what side you wanted to bring it in on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was,
And then, did we approve the playground equipment?
I don't believe so.
so I don't, there was 40, like the playground equipment, I think the total cost was $40,000. And then there was a prepayment made to Metco for, I think, $80,000 or something like that for work. So that may explain kind of the, maybe why some of those funds were expended, or where they were expended.
Was that used from the grant? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, to my memory, some of that memorial stuff was purchased. Go ahead.
So wouldn't it make best sense to decide exactly how the property is gonna lay out before we start grading it and graveling it, and that way we know where to put water and sewer and...
Yeah, I think that's what they're saying.
But if we're gonna start the process in June, as early, or the equipment shows up as early as June, and we wanna have it gravelled and graded by this summer, correct? Is that what you said?
No, because
I misunderstood.
This whole summer ADC...
It gets tested.
It gets tested, well, they have to finish extracting out the rest of the stuff in there.
Okay.
And there was, Yeah, when they went through, they found mercury there, and so, which is one of those things where that has to be disposed of, and it's actually not what the Jesse Lee home was, but I think it was actually, there was structures that were underneath the Jesse Lee home from previous something or another. And so they have to kind of figure out, they know it's there, they have to figure out how they have, some of those items cannot be disposed of here in Alaska, and so they will have to take some of them down to the lower 48 to Washington, I believe, to dispose of them, some of that soil. And so that's kind of, so anyway, I think, yeah, this summer it's pretty much like everything extracting, and then I think possibly just at least filling it in so it's there. But I mean, yeah, you're right. If we knew some plans and we were gonna start filling stuff in, that would be the time to kind of put some infrastructure in if we're gonna.
So we have basically a year to decide what's gonna be done there, or how it's gonna be laid out, or not a year, but 8 months.
Because the grading will really be, like Jason explained, it'll be according to what ADC is going to make us do, which would require us to. And beyond that, then we could work on the infrastructure, whatever we're going to do for the future, for 23.
Perfect.
And there's that side road, kind of a path. There's no plans, so to get to this parking lot, there'll have to be some upgrades to roads in the area to get to the parking lot,
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I did want to touch on the mitigation. We don't know cost. We've been told that it could be $50,000, and honestly, $50,000, I figure that's something we'll appropriate. If it becomes more than that, we'll go through Brownsfield. So, but when we get that information, that'll be provided to you, and then we'll determine next steps.
And I don't know is everyone aware of what a Brownsfield grant would accomplish? Could you touch on that a little bit?
It's a fund that's created for cleaning up contaminated sites. They used to be just for Superfund sites, I think that's the terminology, but now it does smaller sites. And speaking to ADC, they have offered to work with us for a grant. So as soon as we know the costs, then we'll be able to go forward on that one.
Go ahead.
Can, at some point, not right now, but can we get an idea of what, if there's a road here, or if this is private property? And I know there's a road that comes up this way as well. Is that a plotted road, like it has a name, or is it considered an alley?
Yeah, it is actually a road, and it's platted on there. I actually just drove up there today, just to see how things were looking up there. But that is a platted road, and it's actually an access road to the other housing unit that got put up in there. So so it shares that common access road right there on that side.
Does it go all the way through?
No.
So it's like a dead end up at the housing?
Yeah. So basically, it goes. If you were looking at that map, it comes across, and then where the park that was right here kind of comes across, and then there's a private lot that sits there, and there's that housing that fairly new that got put in there, but it just stops right there.
Okay.
So, and I know one of the cons, when I read through all of the comments, and I think that there was people that do not want a thoroughfare there because they figured people would start to try and cut through for traffic, and that would not be a good thing to have in a park area. That was just a side note there. Where you want to make it so that, at least that traffic can't drive all the way through right there.
So maybe I'll make a statement just to see if we're on the same page. So right now, we're just getting information on where we're at today. But it sounds like as we move forward, when everything's ready to have a concept be brought back to us, it sounds like folks just want to move the lens a little bit to make sure that we're looking at the area just a little bit outside and access.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say my concern would be is if there's enough room there to have a cul-de-sac or like some sort of turnaround so that you don't have traffic backing up.
I did want to say that, keep in mind that the grant is for a park, so that's what, if we do have to tie this to a park.
And a memorial.
Park and memorial.
Yeah, so maybe when that gets brought back to us, we'll resurrect that language from that grant, just to make sure that we're following those stipulations. That's a good point. Yeah, it feels good to just kind of lay out on the table what we know and what we don't know. And it sounds like there's more to come. Does anyone have any objection if we turn over to the public for a little bit? So we're not to the same rules as if we were in an actual regular or special meeting, but it would be helpful if you say who you are, and then we'll try to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. So is there anyone out there that would like to speak? Go ahead.
My name is Cheryl Steves, and my primary concern here is a Jesse Lee Memorial, and I've seen the sketch plans for possible memorial items, and they do not tell the story at all of the history, and, pardon me. The Historic Preservation Commission has experience, and we have good accreditation with the state, the SHPO. So I believe our commission would be more than willing to pursue a CLG grant in order to create an honoring memorial of the Jesse Lee home. I don't think the ideas that I've seen sketched do credit at all. Oh, and I would like to ask that our commission be invited into the creation and ideas behind the memorial, as we are the Historic Preservation Commission. And we know a little bit about the home. And if you go around town, you can see our historic signage, so you can see the work we do and the research that it took to do that. And that's what we kind of like to see with the Jesse Lee, so that people can be actually educated on what it was, because it did serve the entire state.
Can I let the public have comments? Did you want?
Well, it was just a question about her.
Okay, yeah.
Do we have a sketch of what the memorial would be? I don't recall seeing one.
We have not found one.
Okay, so it's a blank slate at this point, it sounds like-ish.
Well, and if the commission's been provided with a sketch, if they want to send it to administration, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, because we haven't, apparently.
I believe we do have some draft ideas, so we'll forward those when we find them.
Thank you. Did you have?
I just wanted to clarify what CLG?
Certified local government.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So the CLG grants, we have, I think some things have been ordered for the memorial that was maybe originally a concept, I don't know that piece, but I don't know how it worked since it was a state grant with another state grant. I'm sure it would be fine, we would just have to work that through. It's like Hoban Park.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Linda Paquette, outside city limits. Couple of questions. So has the city decided that, because there was that housing question in there, is this land not being considered at all for housing, is one question. Another question is, what's going to happen with that playground equipment when it comes? Since it can't go there for a year, will it just stay stored? And then the third question is, what is the capacity of that parking lot? And it's a kind of a bigger question, who are we really trying to serve here with that park? It seems like that whole neighborhood, that whole mountainside would pretty much get a lot of use out of it. But how many people do we actually think are going to go there? And are there some numbers you've done to make sure the parking lot is big enough? Because if it isn't big enough, then you're going to create a parking problem in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Go ahead. Some of those I don't know that we have an answer for, but.
Okay. Regarding the housing question, and we'll bring back the grant language, as we have, because we'll bring back updates and we'll have a future meeting, but some of the housing question would be tied to the grant language which states at Park and Memorial. So we will, and at this point, we know that we have to wait on ADC even to, allow any building on there. So that's a question we still have to wait on. The playground equipment, we'll find if we're going to store it, and it can't be used at any other playground because it was purchased with the grant funds for this park, so we won't be doing that. And the capacity of the parking lot, I'll have to get back to you on that.
depend on what the final site plan. We'll let everyone else have a quick turn, and then, is there anyone else wishing to speak? Thank you.
Yes, Mary Judas inside the city limits. I also was wanting to bring up the Historic Preservation Group and the wonderful job they did with the historical walking signage and all of that. And thank you very much for all of your work. I think they would be a great help in designing an appropriate and historically more accurate memorial. And I did support and do support a memorial there for the Jesse Lee Home for Children. I had a parent who was there. I was born and raised in Kodiak, and my dad spent several years there, just at the outbreak of the war, and was part of the group that was sent on to Klutna and made it back home again. It has served a lot of Alaskans over its history, and it has a long history here in Seward, dating back, as you know, to the 20s. I also wanted to say that I also support this memorial to be not a huge memorial. I think appropriately sizing needs to be considered. I don't think it needs to be huge, but I think it does need to be done in a very appropriate and thorough way to represent the accuracy for the public to understand the history there. And also, I just wanted to say that I have supported the idea of having part of that area be looked at for housing. As we know, even since that survey was done, we understand the crunch and the need and the urgency we have. And that area is very close to the public schools. I lived up there. There is another park existing already up on Dora Way. It's small, but it's highly used by the children up there and could be enhanced, I think, to be a better park for the kids and families up there. I think maybe a smaller park and area, if you do want to, have a combo of housing and park. But I think in the consideration of the need in the town for housing, particularly for small families, that area just makes sense. It's so close to the schools. The kids can walk to school. The accessibility for the parents to be downtown or in town to work their jobs. So that's all I have to say.
Is there anyone else that would like to make comments from the public? Cheryl, did you had your hand up? Oh, Tom, did you want to say something? Okay. Cheryl, you wanted to have another?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone that it is zone park, not residential. And Jackie Wild did a presentation before all of you, pointed out all the reasons why there couldn't be housing. I don't know where that information is, but it should be in the record somewhere.
There's still lots to consider. Is there anyone else wishing to make comment? Council, would you have any? Go ahead, Councilmember Moss.
I don't know if admin has the answer to this, but do you know what percentage of the park it would have to be to utilize the grant money and maybe use a portion of it for housing still?
We would have to look at the grant language to determine that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, before we get back on the record, the one opportunity we have with Committee of the Whole and then going back into a special meeting is that we have the opportunity to take some action. Is there any action administration would like to see taken at today's meeting, or are you looking for any specific directions?
I don't believe that we are. We just wanted you to know where we are and that, we obviously have to get a lot more answers to questions, and we will, and we'll bring it back before you.
I think it was helpful to make, hopefully it was helpful to get some of those questions out too. Go ahead.
I think just for the public, just to clarify, the the conceptual drawings and everything that we were presented by past administration were just that, conceptual, and they were a presentation. There was never any action taken on this, so there's nothing, like not even a single part, other than we did rezone it to park. And the question I asked when we rezoned it to park is, can we unzone it from park? And at the time I was told yes, so it is park right now. But things change. Thank you.
Could I make a comment?
Yes, please, do.
Mary brought up, Sharon Ganser, I live outside City Limits this time. Mary brought up the park on Doorway, the one that I thought was going to be demolished eventually. I'd heard that in some news a while back, maybe a few months back. And the lot was going to be sold for housing. Is that correct?
So the way that resolution was adopted was it's going to remain park until either this playground or another playground in the area was developed first, and then that will be. So there's kind of that backstop to that.
And that park is utilized quite a bit. It's also very dangerous for kids walking. There's no walking along Doorway, there's no access, and the park, if there was a park at Jesse Lee area, it's just a much safer place for kids to go. They can ride their bikes up in there. There's that path that's already put in there from the people that made the 12-plex, 12 or 14-plex. They made a path that goes from Doorway all the way down to Benson or to the school. So it seems like it would be a much safer place for people to go.
Thank you. Any other comments? So with no objection, we'll go back into the special meeting portion and out of the committee of the whole. So does administration want to recap, or you want me to kind of recap, or does the clerk want to read, or how do we want to do this wrap up?
Yeah, I would appreciate if you would restate, just to put on the record officially for the minutes, if there's a summary of your committee and if there's any action to be taken at this time.
So administration can add to it. I'll just say, during the committee of the whole, we were brought up to speed with what the current administration understands to date. We'll be looking forward to additional information from ADEC before moving forward. There's a number of questions that came up during that committee of the whole that administration is going to research and check into. And then council will continue to get updates, and then at some point in the future, when it's appropriate and we're ready, we'll not only get any cost or any plans with the cleanup that we might have to allocate, but then also conceptual plans will be brought back to us for final approval, so that the community as a whole would have a lot more opportunity to make comments. Did I miss anything? Did I miss anything, council? So with that, next on the agenda is another chance at citizen comments. Is there anyone wishing to come to the dais and make comments? Okay. Council and administration comments in response to citizen comments? I'll start with administration. Do you have any comments?
Other than thank you, council, for this meeting and for your first committee. And we just appreciate your time.
Councilmember, do you have any comments?
I'm just thankful that we were able to get us all up to speed, and the fact that we don't make it extremely clear that we're not quite sure what's going to happen with this property, that the Door property's not getting tore down, as we keep saying over and over again, until we decide where the next park's going to be. And I think it's great to be able to make that clear for all of us. And I look forward to seeing some of the answers to these questions. So, look forward to participating in that.
Thank you. Councilmember Calhoun? Councilmember Cascarino? Councilmember Moss?
I'm good.
Vice Mayor? Okay, I will say, great first committee of the whole, and appreciate everyone's time and everyone in the audience, very helpful. And with that, I will adjourn at 6:40.